Okay, I'll facilitate the question and answer session this morning. And remember, I'm not a quiz master. I'm not trying to catch you out or anything. And in many cases, there is no correct answer. I'd like to thank all our speakers for their presentations. I found it both fascinating and exciting. I'd like to start off with how Charles ended his presentation. He asked the question, why so slow to start converting to natural gas? And I'd like to ask each of the presenters, what's your opinion? Is it the availability of gas? Is it the cost of logistics? Is it the cost of LNG itself, or the cost of conversion? Charles, can we start with you?
Yuri, that's a $1 million question, eh? I guess that resistance to change is a major factor, and reliability, as Petrus has so aptly shown us in the Cape Town scenario, it was a forced change that happened there. But if it wasn't for COVID and the shortage of LPG, Consol wouldn't have changed over. So I guess that primarily it's resistance to change from the way that people are currently running it. There's no current LNG production except for the little bit of LNG coming from Renergen. And import through Durban Harbour, you can't even get coal exports or normal exports out and in of Durban Harbour. So it is a risky business to bring in large energy into South Africa through harbours that are not very reliable. So there will have to be quite a few changes before big volumes of LNG can come into the country.
Andre, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, perhaps just from my side, I think, I mean, we've seen natural gas uptake, specifically on compressed natural gas deliveries, a growth factor of a 10x since in our business since COVID. So massive market growth from our side, but it's mainly constrained, as Charles says, from a gas availability point of view. That's the major challenge. I mean, we've proven the market is out there. There's a few hundred petajoules of market, especially on the power gen market. I think the distributed power own generation type applications to support renewables, that's a massive growth segment. But remember, we've been starved from having enough gas for the past 10, 15 years by Sasol. So a very constant gas supply. And that's why we're seeing all these interesting indigenous gas coming to market, the Kineticos, the D3s, Botswana's, Renergens, etc. So I'm very confident when we see gas come to market, we'll be able to place that. But there's no doubt the business cases all stand up. We've seen 3 business cases today, so the business case is there. If the security of supply is there, the customers will convert. If the business case and the value prop is strong enough.
Yes, that's the major issue, Andre, security of supply.
Yeah. The infrastructure bit is not that difficult to solve. The small scale work, we've proven that. We've proven it extensively on compressed natural gas, that you can do gas on wheels. The pipelines is a touch and go because of the expense of building pipelines outside of the network. I mean, we've delivered past 10 years 22,000 gas deliveries on truck, 40-foot CNG containers. So it can be done. It's being done. So we just need the gas, and the market is there. Thanks, Yuri.
Thanks, Andre. Petrus, from your side.
Yeah, thanks. I think I agree with everybody on the supply side. Availability of LNG as such is a problem at the moment. There's just not enough of it. And if you look at the small-scale importation of LNG, we've been fortunate enough to have a direct experience during that COVID period in Cape Town, where we imported several containers, small ISO containers from Rotterdam. And the big learning exercise there was all the difficulties we had in getting people to understand that LNG is actually safer than LPG. Getting the product into the harbour was a major difficulty from the harbour personnel's point of view. We couldn't berth next to specific types of ships. We had to wait for the right ship to come in, where we can berth right next to them. We had to move the containers out within a certain period of time. Just the authorities were more of a stumbling block than a help at every point of turn there. So that was very difficult, and we need to train people up in the authority side to understand LNG and the use thereof as well. Then the overall cost with delays in Cape Town Harbour, this was specifically a Cape Town import. We know the weather is not always very good in Cape Town. We might have caught it very unlucky, but we had long delays waiting for ships to come back. One of the vessels actually went around to PE, coming back again, and all the time you're paying for the rental of the container, as well as the shipping cost on that. So that just increased the cost significantly. I think that, together with the general think that it's an unsafe product to use until it's been proven different, and it's training exercise. You know, we just have to continue with these types of webinars to train people up and how safe it is actually compared to alternatives, and then find solutions in the supply side. That's, I think, the major stumbling block. Yeah, that's about it from my side. You know, cost
Thanks,
is
Petrus.
quite high.
Yeah, thanks, Petrus. Charles also showed some calculations around CO2 generation from diesel and from the use of LNG. So the question I have, again, to all three of you is, what's the primary driver for LNG projects of this nature? Is it decarbonization or is it purely project economics? Oh, can we ask you to kick it off?
You ask an industrialist, it's one answer. You ask the public and other groups of people, it's another answer. Fortunately, and that is very fortunate, LNG supplies both those groups with the correct answer. It is cheaper and it is carbon sensitive. So it doesn't really matter which is the primary driver, whether it's somebody with a green drive or it is somebody with a profit drive. LNG is the answer.
Okay, Andre?
Yeah, I think it's mainly the economics at this point in time for us. Although we're seeing the ESG starting to pick up. Funny enough, we've got a very large customer that actually uses natural gas to make CO2 because they need CO2. So that's quite a contradiction in one of the fizzy drink applications. So yeah, but mainly economics at this point in time.
Okay, thanks. Petrus?
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of the bigger industries might be able to get some benefit out of the carbon credits. A lot of the smaller guys can't really get into it or hasn't done gone to the trouble to get it sorted out. And I think once we've got localized produced LNG, economics will definitely play a part.
Okay, thanks, Petrus. Then a question to Charles from Wilming. It says, thank you for the example you've presented. And will a larger power generation facility influence the economics in any way? If it's larger or smaller than that specific example you mentioned?
It's really looking at Kelvin on the one side for small scale LNG and looking at the 1 megawatt or very small industrial sites. Going smaller to the farmer or somebody in the rural areas running half a megawatt, it doesn't matter. The whole range from Kelvin down to the farmer, LNG beats diesel every time, because remember, half of the price of diesel that you buy in South Africa goes into the government coffers. It's only the other half that feeds the value chain, and on LNG at this stage, everything feeds the value chain. So in essence, it will always be up to the really, really very big systems be more profitable going LNG than diesel.
Okay. Sorry, Andre, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think there's even other categories of applications, and not purely diesel. We're also seeing some hybrid solutions where you got renewables with a mix of natural gas on the power gen. It's working. So we've done quite a lot of feasibility studies from the 5 megawatts up to 50 or 100 megawatts. So the whole range works, but it's not only diesel replacement. Sometimes it's grid connected, hybrid, a bit of PV on the roof, as well as gas. So very interesting. And you saw the graph on the Eskom tariff where it's going. We've crossed over now. So natural gas even inland, and especially on the indigenous gas, on the local gas, there's definitely a business case to be made for that. And then on the liquid fuels, obviously, sorry, Charles, on liquid fuels on those markets, obviously refining capacity, South Africa, we're out of capacity. Our refineries have shut down. It's all imported. So imported liquid fuels, very strong business cases to be made there.
And as Andre has said now, the gas generator will, for a very long time, be cheaper than the lithium battery for the backup on PV, as a matter of principle.
Right. Thanks. Then we have a question from Stephen Trickett. He says, why the choice of Kelvin as a site for a new combined cycle gas turbine? Says you have the problem of gas logistics costs, the fact that CCGT is less efficient at altitude, and a lot of historical structures that have to be removed. He says the only advantage he can see is the grid connection point. And he would expect electrical transmission costs would easily offset gas transport cost. Any comments on that, Andre?
Yeah, I think Kelvin is quite unique. I cannot speak on behalf of the owners of Kelvin, but Kelvin provides grid stability where it is at the moment, as well as it's quite an important revenue stream for the municipality as well. So strategically, it's an important asset. It's a brownfield asset. It's got quite unique economic benefits to actually do that. Besides the fact that you need to move gas inland to actually do that. So it's quite a unique business case. And that business case goes for all the old municipal power stations, well, the Rooiwals, Victoria West, etc. So I think quite a unique business case, as I said.
Thanks, Andre. Then we have a question from Mr. Nick de Blok, specifically to Petrus, and he wants to know what the price difference between LNG and LPG is for Ardagh.
Oh, I think you'll have to ask that question directly from them. I can unfortunately not reveal that information directly here.
Okay. Then, Andre, a question to you from Hendrik van Huisteen. He wants to know at what distance the transport of gas and the transport cost for CNG, transport cost for CNG on the one hand and for LNG on the other hand, at what distance is it the same?
Yeah, so the basic principles between CNG and LNG is that you roughly get about 5 times more gas on a truck if you go LNG versus CNG. So in the CNG case, you move around quite a lot of steel. So typically around 200 gigajoules per truck, LNG almost 1,000, sometimes even more than 1,000. So that extends the range, like we see in the Ardagh example, 1,400 kilometers, whereas typical CNG ranges probably 100 kilometer radius to up to 150. So your transport cost has got a major issue. The other challenge with on the CNG side is that you need to start switching traders quite regularly. You cannot decant the compressed gas, so you use a just-in-time mobile storage type of philosophy. So the trader acts as your storage, and you remove that when it's empty. So in large consumers, some of our customers switch traders every 3-4 hours. So it becomes quite a complex logistic operation to get enough traders on site in time. Whereas the benefit on the LNG would be you can actually have on-site storage and larger deliveries. every time you send a trader. So quite unique characteristics of both the distribution systems. I think there's a place for both of them. Obviously, compression cost is a lot lower than liquefaction cost. So you got the benefit of actually being able to use pipeline gas to compress and then distribute off pipe. Whereas the LNG liquefaction on a small scale, it can become almost double than large scale LNG liquefaction plants. You get into the $7-8 ranges of liquefaction on small scale. Where $3 is sort of the international standard for large LNG terminals or actually liquefaction plant. So quite unique characteristics on both systems, but I think there's a place, obviously plus pipeline for all three distribution systems.
Right, thanks, Andre. Then a question from Gavin Hulse. He wants to know if there are any significant regulatory challenges associated delays in getting permits, EIA approvals, and such when considering conversion from diesel to LNG or to LPG. Shall we start with Charles?
Hey, this one I will pass to my two colleagues that have had much more experience than I have.
Okay, Charles. Andre?
Yeah, I think what we see on our side, obviously the normal fire department approvals are applicable, as well as MHI, major hazardous installations studies that need to be done in some instances. The environmental legislative thresholds or the amount of storage on site. So if you trigger a certain amount of storage, you need to do an EIA. If there's a certain amount of throughput through a pipeline, you would also trigger an EIA or basic assessments. So very clear legislation, and we've got good relationships with all the local fire departments on getting those approvals. So it's actually not too complicated. Legislation are in place, the framework's in place. So.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, I think from my side, one of the concerns we have in that is that we don't have total clarity on what the government is going to do on the duties. If you start to replace a lot of diesel and they lose out on all those duties, we know they're short on cash. It's just a matter of time before duties are being levied onto LNG as well. I don't think we've got a very clear indication on that. It might change the game significantly if they start to do that. And it's just a concern from my side.
Okay, thanks, Petrus. And a question from Mr. Sonoti Mafumulu. He said he's read about the TNPA signing a 25-year operator agreement for South Africa's first LNG operator terminal in Richards Bay. Will the commissioning of such a venture create a potential opportunity for natural gas supply to customers in Gauteng and other parts of South Africa? Who wants to tackle that one?
I think it's such a...
Sorry, Petrus, go first.
I think if such a facility is brought online, obviously they're going to try and link to the pipeline, so that will be first choice. But it will be very sensible to have a liquid supply side as well, where you can fill up trucks and move those trucks around. With the sulfur sensitivity in the country and everywhere in the world, HFO is very likely to be replaced by LNG if the government pushes too hard when environmental laws becomes very stringent around the sulfur. Currently, with the refineries being down, we have a relaxation on the sulfur levels, and we are not seeing the very, very low sulfur levels going into various industries. So first of all, that will be a good advantage. And depending on the pricing at the end of the day, it can surely compete with a lot of the other energy drivers, and it will definitely open up better opportunities. So I think, yes, liquefied natural gas on small scale, once that facility is in place, it's a definite growth point.
Okay, thanks, Petrus. And a question from Mr. Selwyn Boyson. He wants to know if there are any infrastructure bottlenecks, things like pipeline interconnectivity and so on, availability of pipelines. Andre, we start with you.
Yeah, I think if you look at LNG import terminals, let's start there. The first challenge would be to get gas inland. So there is one or two missing pieces in the infrastructure. For instance, Matola to Romco, there's a new pipeline link that needs to be built there. It's probably a few $100 million that you need to spend. If you look at Richards Bay, you need to reverse the Lily pipeline, the Transnet gas pipeline. That's also going to be quite expensive. I'm not convinced that it actually will happen. Numbers of 9 to 12 billion rand to actually repurpose or reverse that pipeline. So there is pieces of existing gas pipeline infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. Even on the Sasol transmission and distribution networks, there's certain sections, as I've shown on the Secunda Springs pipeline, there's some bottlenecks that need to be upgraded. So a bit of work if you want to grow the market and actually get alternative sources of gas into the market.
Okay.
But it will surely create opportunities, because once
Yes.
you land the larger parcels in Richards Bay, Andre has shown clearly that it will be quite economical to move LNG on a virtual pipeline into Gauteng. And it will most probably also be economical to reverse Lily and spend that money, because the huge heat map that he showed is in Gauteng.
Yeah.
Okay. Follow-up question from Selvin Boyson. Are you and I think this is specifically to Andre, are you planning to transition some of your CNG infrastructure to handle LNG? And if so, what technical modifications and timelines are you considering?
Yes, we definitely, as I've shown, some of our compression stations and gas hubs will add the LNG to that, where some of the boil-off gas can actually go back into the compression side of the business. On the customer side, so our receiving facilities that currently is gas depressurization systems would need gasifiers as well as on-site gas storage. But fairly simple gas or cryogenic tanks on site and some gasifiers. The customer equipment wouldn't need to change. I'm assuming it's fairly similar composition in the gas. There might be some customers on the MRG, the lower energy density or energy value customers that might require a bit of tuning to their equipment, but some infrastructure on site upgrades will be required.
Thanks, Andre. And we've basically run out of questions. There's just one last one from Wilmina herself, and I'll again pose this to all three our presenters. What do you think is the biggest barrier for industries to convert? Let's start with Charles.
It is reliability of supply, Yuri.
Yeah.
In my mind, there's no doubt about it. If we had reliable LNG or natural gas supply, and not having been starved for the last 20 years on the pipeline from Mozambique, and not having problems in getting LNG through our harbors, we would have transitioned to LNG much further than we are currently are.
Well, I think I agree with Charles. I mean, the biggest challenge we've had in the market currently is to convince new customers to actually go onto natural gas. And because all of them are saying, well, what about the gas cliff? What happens if Sasol runs out? There's no certainty on LNG. When are these projects going to reach financial close? What's the price going to be? So that uncertainty makes it very difficult, especially for the large gas users. And like we've seen some of the power generation customers to make capital investments. They cannot invest in those projects or upgrade production lines and have a longer term view on the capital expenditure on their side if they don't have the gas security and certainty where it's going to be. So a very difficult situation in the gas market at the moment is that everybody's sitting on their hands and waiting it out until there's certainty about the LNG projects, the indigenous gas and other supply. We've seen the example Beatrice has shown us as well on if it's not reliable and certain, you could incur some additional cost there, backup or redundancy in your production.
Before Petrus starts to answer, Yuri, I would really like to add on here and say that is exactly the reason why it is so important to start to develop the indigenous gas supply systems.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to what Charles and Andre has been saying. I think security of supply definitely, and security of costing structures and environmental legislation is important for everybody who wants to make a long-term decision in this regard. We have to lobby with the government as well to get things together. As I also mentioned, the duties that we need to know for certainty where we're going to go into the future, and that will open the way for us.
Thanks, Beatrice. Now, my role is to ask the questions, not to answer questions. So I'll try and put what I have to say in the form of a question. But do you guys not think that lack of information about the benefits of gas is also a problem, specifically for smaller industries? And that's one of the reasons why we started the series of webinars, is to teach. Any comments?
Yeah, well, I think as I was saying in my first question as well, is that it starts with the authorities as well. They are not, in all cases, fully aware of the benefits or the safety issues around LNG. So almost the training and the education starts at that level. We have been to several customers and talked about LNG usage. There is a very large lack of knowledge in the industry. So you're absolutely right as far as that's concerned. I think these webinars are very important, and I've seen quite a few of them already, promoting LNG, and that's where we should go forward. Train people up and make them hungry for this opportunity.
Thanks, Beatrice. Any other comments? Oh.
I think perhaps just as an afterthought, I think the education to government and the importance of natural gas in our energy mix. I think there's a lot of work that's been done by some of the industry associations and some of the business associations as well. We're seeing now with our new Minister of Energy and Electricity actually stepping up and realizing the importance that natural gas and the future of energy in our energy mix. Energy to power, as well as our industrial manufacturing base that we have to protect with the gas cliff. And I think some of those lobbying on governmental level is starting to pay off. There's been a lot of work done by BUSA, South Africa Oil and Gas Association, ONPASA, IGUA SA, and I think now we're busy getting the politicians on our side as well. And I think we're going to start seeing some movement. There's statements by Eskom on their gas to power program, Minister Ramaphosa on LNG projects and gas imports. So I think we're gaining momentum, and we are extremely bullish about the future of indigenous gas as well as LNG, and especially on the small scale on our side.
Right.
Thank you.
That's the end of our questions. I'd like to thank our speakers, Andre Hugo from Nova Energy, Charles Buys and Petrus Scholz, both from OTC. And with that, it's back to Wilmien.